Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my day 3 update for my Kinetic Fusillade Hierophant. Now, while yesterday we built the mid-game foundation to be able to complete everything in the game, we are now in farming mode and we need to make the build deal more damage and be tankier. And for that, we'll have 3 different swaps that I'll go over that I did yesterday over on stream on twitch.tv/Palsteron. We are now officially Aegis Aurora, so that is the first one. Defensively, that changes quite a bit. We're going to go through all of that. Then we're also going to use Yoke of Suffering, as discussed before League Start. This is going to be my endgame amulet. There's definitely better ones, especially simplex enemies, but it doesn't really matter. Yoke of Suffering is just a very efficient package. And we're also going to make use of one of the new exceptional gems. So let's jump into it. Now, first up, I've just reached level 99 farming Beyond Altars yesterday. It's quite nice for XP. The Beyond monsters do hit quite a bit, so you have to have your setup first before you're going to get to level 99. I might get to level 100, but I usually stop at, like, I don't want to force it. I just want to farm. But other than that, we are going to look at all the defensive setups that I did, starting with the Aegis Swap. Now, first up, Aegis Aurora. This is the Fall 1 version. All that changes here is it's instead of LE damage with attacks, damage cannot be reflected, which, I mean, you can run one extra map mod. It is what it is. I had the money for it, so I bought it, but I would highly recommend that until you have everything set up that I'm going to talk about in this video, you do not waste any money on the Fall 1 version, just so you're aware. Okay, but let's jump into it. So, it has a lot of energy shield and armor. It has some res, maximum cold res, chance to block. Okay, the bottom line, recover energy shield equal to 2% of armor when you block. So if you have, for example, 50,000 armor, that is a straight 1,000 energy shield whenever you block. And it from there just gets better and better the more armor you have. It is an incredible shield, and this whole package is super, super comfy, especially with the lead mechanic where you go into the Mirage and there's already 100 mobs on top of you. Every small hit will be completely, like, it would just be a joke. You can still get one shot. It can happen, obviously, but this is as far as we'll get in this department. So what do you have to do to actually use it? Well, first up, you need good rare gear. Now, my rare gear is decent. I have okay armor and energy shield here. Okay armor and energy shield here. This is only armor, which is fine on the boots. It doesn't really matter. You just want round about 1,300 to 2,000 energy shield, somewhere in that realm. And then a really good body armor. Now, my body armor is missing around about 200 energy shield and like probably 800 armor, so it is what it is, but it is good enough to make Aegis good. However, you can't just slap an Aegis on a build and it's gonna work. That's not how it works. If you have still scuffed gear, you could go for a Foul Burn Surrender for the time being like I did, or just get a rare shield with a lot of armor and really good block, and it will have great effect as well. You will have to press your life flask a little bit more often. It is what it is. But if you want to make Aegis Aurora work, the biggest upside of Aegis, a lot of people don't really talk about, is that you can do some nifty things with removing a lot of block nodes. So you notice how I don't have Safeguard anymore. I don't have Arcane Guarding anymore. In fact, I now have Anger Effect on my body armor in the implicit. So all of that is gone, and I'm still capped at 75 block right here. 75. Okay, my spell block is... Okay, my Tempest Shield is off. 75. That's all you need. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It's because you can use Glancing Blows. Glancing Blows usually pretty bad, but since sure you take 65% of damage from blocked hits, and that can technically be bad if you got lucky on a big hit that hits you, but most of the time, if you don't get hit at all, you can't even make use of the recovery mechanic. So if you get hit for a little bit, you won't even see it moving. So what Glancing Blow basically does is it saves you like 15 passive points, or sometimes even 20 passive points. And that's a lot of points you can invest into other things. Now, another thing you want to do at this point is path on the left side. I think I noticed it here. Yeah, left side pathing. What left side pathing lets you do instead of here is, well, now you don't need Safeguard anymore, so it's not really important to be here. And also it lets you be a little bit more efficient. You get a little bit of extra strength, so you don't really have to think about that anymore. And it has a really good Thread of Hope spot. Now, talking about the Thread of Hope. Thread of Hope is can get quite expensive if it's meta. This Thread of Hope passive skills and radius also grants 7% increased armor. This is completely ridiculous in this spot. Like, it is unfathomable how good it is. So if you have the money for it, you should buy it. But if you don't, there is another alternative, which is slightly worse, but it's better than nothing, which is you go Sanctum of Hope here, and instead of this Light of Meaning, you're just gonna go for damage, and then you're going to unspec damage nodes. Or even better, if you don't have a cluster setup yet, you cut the cluster setup, and you do this, right? You cut the cluster setup, you take Sanctum of Thought, and then you go down here, get back the Arcanist Dominion, boom, boom. It is nowhere near as good, but it is still quite strong. And then you put a whatever, like a damage jewel right here. All right, there you go. What you can also do if you need more armor is you can path through these nodes right here and then, whoops, and then remove, yeah, just path through the starting nodes naturally. But I don't want to downplay it. Thread of Hope is extremely strong, so make sure you get it eventually. You do not need to wait for it until you go Aegis. You can go Sanctum of Thought for now. Also take Faith of Steel. And afterwards, you can't really do all that much in terms of percentage armor, which is also why Light of Meaning is that good. Eventually, if I'm going to recraft my ring, I will get this +1 maximum endurance charge, and then I will get +1 minimum endurance charge from my second ring. Now, you will have a lot of extra points here if you have the Thread of Hope and you don't have to take Sanctum of Thought, and that opens up a cluster jewel. Now, when it comes to cluster jewels, there's a million different combinations out there, and usually when I put one in, they get really expensive when you could just buy one for, I don't know, 2 divines that is like 1% worse. But I just went for Opportunistic Fusillade and Martial Prowess. You need exactly Storm's Hand. So that Storm's Hand is in the back, and you can take these 2, and you don't have to take anything in the back. But in general, cluster jewels, there's nothing crazy here. We already have a lot of increased damage. None of these are game breaking. It's just so we can fit in 2 extra jewels. If you have better use case for this cluster jewel, then that's totally fine as well. Now, the last thing you want to do is you want to change your cast when damage taken. Now, the reason why I had Molten Shell and cast when damage taken both on level 20 was that Molten Shell actually gave quite a bit of flat armor, and I was low on armor, so it was kind of just there in the worst case scenario. But you want to proc Molten Shell as often as possible, right? So now that we have a lot of armor, what we do is we go for a level 1 cast when damage taken with a level 7 and not higher. It cannot be higher, not 8 or anything. Molten Shell. Now, if you read cast when damage taken, it says trigger supported spells when you take 528 of total damage from hits. That goes up with level. So the one before that you had, you needed like 2,000 damage taken. But this one, even if an enemy just slightly hits you, you immediately get your Molten Shell up, which is very important to be ready for bigger hits. And at the top, it says this gem can only support skill gems requiring level 38 or lower. So if you level the Molten Shell higher than 7, it will not proc. So just be aware of that. So that's the Aegis setup. With this one, I felt a lot safer. The biggest pitfall you can make though, which I currently have, is not to care about your chaos resistance. So imagine this, you're currently super strong, you're recovering your ES, it's going up, down, up, down, up, down. But once you get hit through your energy shield into your life pool, then you're kind of toast. You only have this 3,600 life. Protected with a measly 29 chaos res, and that's what happens to me all the time. So what I'll do next also is upgrade my gear for chaos res. You can see my boots has like nothing on it, basically. That is relevant, and then also my helmet. I will get both chaos resistance rolls, and then I'll be chaos res cap. This is something you will have to prioritize ASAP once you're Aegis. All right, let's talk about offenses though. At this point, I'm assuming you have 20 quality on all your gems. Your gems are probably level 20. You've tried to get Kinetic Fusillade with a good support. Ally damage for attacks is good. Inspiration is decent. Anything that gives you damage, basically. And we're now going to talk about one of the new exceptional gems, Invert the Rules. So one of the downsides of this build is that we are all over the place with our elemental damage. We don't really have any focus on fire, lightning, or cold, which means it's hard to penetrate enemy resistances because we also can't use Trinity, because Trinity cannot be used on totems. So this gem right here just solves a lot of those issues. Invert the Rules. Hits from supported skills have a chance to treat enemy monster resistance values as inverted. So that means, for example, enemy has 50% res. Instead, enemy has minus 50% res. That is crazy. So let's do an example here. Your damage, you deal 100 damage with a single hit. The enemy has 50 resistances. That usually means that, well, pretty easy math, right? You deal half the damage, 50. But what does it mean if the enemy has minus 50? It means you deal 150. So you just tripled your damage. So for that, you have up to 41% chance on a level 3. I'm currently leveling up. It goes to 41%. As well as that, you can stack that with the Elemental Mastery. Whether this is multiplicative or additive, we don't really know yet. It's worth in both cases. All right, so really good gem. Definitely worth the price tag. But you need to do some things here. Make sure to remove your Elemental Weakness for Sniper's Mark. Elemental Weakness reduces enemy resistances, so you can invert less. It actually reduces your damage with this gem. So you need to get it out of here as soon as possible and get yourself a Sniper's Mark. Now in PoB, it might not seem like you increased your damage much, but the reality is Elemental Weakness wasn't always up. It was only up when you placed your Arcanist brand. Now, Invert the Rules is always up because it is in your main links. And now imagine you're running stuff like maps with resistances. In maps where enemies have resistances, or if you clicked on an altar where all enemies get resistances, then, well, you can't put down your Arcanist brand all the time. So this very, very much matters. It also matters against rares that are going to get off-screen by you that usually wouldn't have because you don't even see it and you can't even do Arcanist brand to begin with. So do not underestimate how strong this gem is. It is a known fact that PoB does underestimate, or the way that PoB works, it underestimates these kinds of effect. The other way you could see it is Invert the Rules is best against high resistance enemies, which are the enemies that are going to slow you down the most, and it does the least against enemies you would have one-shot anyways. Now, important to know, there is other reduced resistance modifiers, for example, exposure. This is something you'll have to look out for yourself. So for example, if you have exposure on your gloves, get rid of that immediately because it also works against Invert the Rules. TLDR, absolutely love this. It makes resistance maps a lot more feasible. It basically nullifies the effect of it, sometimes even slightly increases it if you have the mastery. So yeah, absolute bliss playing with it. And then we have the Yoke of Suffering swap. Yoke of Suffering, if you don't know, is this amulet right here. It has some very nice resistances. And then on the bottom it says, enemies take increased damage for each type of ailment you have inflicted on them. This does work with totems, number one. Your elemental damage can shock, not that important, but pretty nice overall. It gives you a little bit of a more consistent shock. But what this amulet does is, well, we're chilling, we're igniting, we're shocking, so that's 30% increased damage taken. But it doesn't stop there because it doesn't say elemental ailment. So you can also do stuff like bleed enemies. If you have any sort of physical damage, which we do from the base of the wand, you can bleed. And we're hitting 1,000,000 times a second, so they're always going to get bleed, even if you have just 5 to 10% chance to bleed. Same goes for poison, which you can get on a tattoo on intelligence as well. And these increase, once again, the damage that enemies take here from 30 to 50. So you have poison, bleed, shock, chill, ignite. Now these tattoos are quite expensive, especially the poison one. So the bleed one will probably go up if nobody does shipments. It might even go up to like 200 plus chaos. Divine is pretty, so that's like one, it's like less than the divine. And then you have the poison one, which is a little bit more expensive because some other builds actually use it. The bleed one is mostly not used. And for the poison one, if you can't afford it yet, do note that instead of the global accuracy rating here, on the Eater of Worlds, you can actually roll chance to poison as well. So you can also just roll a little bit of blue currency and you can replace the poison tattoo for now. Now you want at least one of each, but if you can afford it, get two just for consistency's sake, right? Like obviously against bosses, it's always going to be up, but in a map, you want to kill rares quickly. You want to have that buff up as soon as possible, so 10% chance to poison and bleed is a lot better than 5%. Also, make sure you actually have big lightning and cold damage. The way that these ailments work is both shock and cold need you to have as much damage as possible. Now, the amulet states your elemental damage can shock, so you're always going to shock. Chill, only cold damage can do, right? So you need a fat cold damage roll here, and then maybe even get more on jewelry. For example, I have a little bit of extra here. So that is quite important. And ignite doesn't matter. We have anger and even one fire damage will ignite. So that's always going to be up. Also note that it doesn't matter how big the ailment is that you apply. It just checks if it's on there, whether it's a 5% chill or a 30%. And then just a reminder for the people who ask me whether elemental focus is fine as a imbue. So you can see, for example, here, I have the elemental damage for attacks. But if you have elemental focus, it's also 20% more damage, but it says cannot inflict any ailments, which before this swap didn't really matter all that much because you shocked for like a little bit. but now it matters because then you can't apply anything. So yeah, before you do that, make sure you get a better support. As for what I've been farming, I'm still doing Beyond and Altars, but I have been implementing one of the new scarabs, which is called the Beyond Scarab of Resurgence. And what it does is it gives you extra tainted currency. It's gonna more consistently spawn the bosses, but it also spawns the other bosses. So whenever you get one boss, you can get up to 3, and you get 3 a lot. And while you're in the Mirage, you can get another 3 bosses on top for a total of 6. And it's happened to me multiple times. Sometimes it even bugs out and I get a 7th. I don't know how that works. But all of these drop Tainted Orb Refusings. They drop other Tainted Currency, which have been crashing ever since I started trying this out. The Scarab has been going up a little bit, but mostly Scarabs are getting printed right now, so it's not that big of a deal. But the farming strat is very, very fun. Also, if you've seen Volatile Val Orbs being used and you don't know where they drop from Beyond in Mirage. So yeah, they're currently hovering between 100 and 150 chaos, and they drop quite frequently. I would say every 4th to 5th map you're gonna see one. And this is the Scarab in question. It looks really junky. It's super cheap. You just throw one in there and you're set up. You do the same thing I did last league. I will have the Atlas passive trees updated. But yeah, it's just absolutely amazing, and it's gonna spawn a lot of the tainted currency. But that's about all I got for today. We're now sitting at a very comfy, I think 22 million DPS with very nice defensive stats. Aegis is a banger item, as it always was. I haven't played Aegis in a while, and I'm always pleasantly surprised coming back to it. But yeah, in the next update, which will be in around about 2 to 3 days, I will be upgrading some of my rare items here or there. I will maybe have something like a timeless jewel. I might change the passive tree accordingly. But yeah, otherwise, really happy where the build is right now. I will be farming for some upgrades, and then I will be farming for next build. Next video, we'll also talk about some of the more endgame options, for example, strength stacking or mana stacking. But yeah, with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.